Thank you so much for joining our webinar, What is Next for eInvoicing in Europe? So for today, I have Gustav and Katrin with me. Katrin will help me with the operations, with the questions and slides, but also Gustav as a speaker. Before that, I want to show you what you expect out of this webinar. So I have an agenda prepared for you. First of all, we will align about the fundamentals about e-invoicing. What does it really mean? What are the different variants? But also we will have a market outlook. So how is the development from now on and in the future? And again, why we are here is we have a deep dive on Belgium and Poland and France. What are the timelines and mandate? And finally, we have closing remarks and a Q&A. Next. Before I introduce TrueCommerce, a few words about myself. My name is Jamal Febo. I'm based in Germany. I'm leading the product marketing in EMEA. And if you haven't heard about TrueCommerce yet, we are existing since over 30 years. I would say older than you, Gustav. And we have 1,200 professionals, not only in Germany, but also in Denmark, in Europe in general, but also in the US and in other parts of the world, as you can see. Most importantly, when it comes to invoicing, you can see that we have 180,000 trading partners, which enabled us and our customer for the growth and basically being global when it comes to invoicing and EDI. And next, I want to hand over to Gustav, a few words.
Yes, thank you for that intro, Jamal. So my name is Gustav Lantz. I'm the product manager for eInvoicing and CTC for TrueCommerce, based out of Copenhagen. I've been working in fintech for the last 6 years in various roles, but these days I'm very much spearheading the e-invoicing side of things here from a TrueCommerce perspective. So really excited to be here today and to get a chance to talk to you guys and get aligned a bit on what is e-invoicing and also what is coming up. Because it can be a bit of a jungle. I'm sure that most of you in this call have tried just Googling e-invoicing or, mandate Belgium or something and being a bit confused. So we're hoping to kind of set the facts straight on some of these issues and also to kind of open up a bit for a Q&A in the end. So if you had any pressing questions, something coming into the webinar or even just something that you thought of as we're presenting, then feel free to write those questions and we'll do our best to take those at the end. Also, just for your knowledge, we're going to be doing it a bit kind of Q&A style throughout the presentation as well. So Jamal is going to be kind of asking me some questions throughout, and we'll kind of take those as we go along, just to make things a bit more interactive. But kicking off and just kind of diving into things, as I mentioned, this area can be a little bit of a jungle in terms of definitions. So we thought that we would just start with the basics and make sure that we're speaking the same language. So as Jamal mentioned, we are an EDI company. So that is kind of what we've been doing for the last 30 years and what's really been our bread and butter. And some might say that, okay, so how does e-invoicing relate to EDI? Well, from an EDI perspective, we've been doing e-invoicing for 30 years because the invoice is just, one document in the EDI portfolio. So if we start a little bit from that perspective, those of you that are not familiar with EDI, that is just the electronic transfer of various types of business documents between trading partners. So that could be, purchase orders, it could be advanced shipping notices, all sorts of kind of supply chain documents that need to be transferred between different partners. One of those documents is invoices. So that's why, we've been doing e-invoicing for as long as we've been doing EDI. But the reason that e-invoicing has kind of become a bit its own area is because we're seeing a lot of these kind of mandates that are coming along. So e-invoicing, which you might hear referred to as post-audit, that is the electronic transfer of specifically invoice documents between trading partners. So you can see that as kind of a subset of the EDI business. Where things get a little bit more interesting is when we start to talk about C2C or CTC, sorry, which stands for Continuous Transaction Controls. You might hear this referred to as kind of clearance models or pre-clearance models. There's a few different terminologies that are used here. But this is basically when you start to involve the tax authority in the invoice flow. And so the way that we look at that is that you basically take an invoice, and instead of only sending that invoice to the trading partner, you also send that to the tax authority. So for every invoice, you can think of it as having two flows, one to the tax authority and one to the trading partner. And depending a bit on the model, that might actually just be one flow. But it will always have those two receivers when we're talking about the CTC context. And of course, I think what makes this quite complex, but also that's the kind of the fun in it, is that we have these local market requirements. So it would be wonderful if, every country in the world had chosen the same way to do this. And that would make our lives a lot easier, and yours too. But that's not the case. And so each country, they kind of have their own flavor of how they choose to do things. So whether it's a post-audit country or a CTC country, they each can have their own kind of structures and flows and formats and so forth. And that's something that we're going to be going to in a bit more detail in Belgium, France, and Poland as well.
And Gustav, just to jumping in on that, we see now this chemical test tube. So basically, I can combine those elements in one. But why I cannot just do e-invoicing? Why is it wise to combine it? For example, with EDI, what we see here. Do you have any good explanation for our audience?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think that e-invoicing, it gets a lot of attention because you have this kind of government-driven aspect to it. So there's a lot of mandates which basically forces companies to start looking at e-invoicing because they have no other choice. They have to be compliant. But the entire EDI business, it doesn't come from a kind of a compliance-driven place. It comes from a business efficiency place. And so companies have just realized that if they're sending a lot of information and data between different partners, then it makes sense to do that in a structured and automated way. That's just a way to cut out a lot of the friction in those interactions. So if you are looking at doing e-invoicing from a compliance perspective, then you should also be looking at doing EDI from a kind of a business value and efficiency perspective. And that's where it can be really good to have one provider that can kind of link the two. And so you don't have to have different providers for different functions. I think that's you two kind of fitting together.
Yeah, it sounds interesting because that leads me to a question for our audience. And Katrin, you can help me on that, please. Because I just want to understand how is our audience, in which states are they set up? So just asking, when it comes on the e-invoice solution, which e-invoice solution you have currently in place? You are already doing e-invoice with EDI, or you're just doing invoice itself, or you are not at a state you just plan to have e-invoice in the future? So let's give us some moments to see the outcome. And Katrin, just give a wink when we are done with the results. And I think Gustav, please comment on that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll give everyone a few seconds, but it's easy. Jamal and I can see the results coming in here as well. So it's very interesting to kind of see, well, firstly, that there's a few people in this call that are listening and interacting, of course, but also just to see a bit which state everyone is in, because I can imagine that for some, this will be your first touch point with e-invoicing. And for others, you've probably been doing EDI for the last 30 years, like we have. And so this is a kind of a natural progression of that, of course.
So 66% I can see, at least on my end, have provided the voice. Katrin, whenever.
Yeah, I'm gonna end the poll.
So where are we now? Can you read?
Share the results.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Yes. So you can see that I think that the minority is doing e-invoicing without EDI, but we see as with 43%, right? EDI and invoicing combined. So basically having this structure already in place, which has many benefits, but I also see a 43%, quite a group who has not thought into process. And I really hope, Gustav, you can help now to give the best guidance, what to consider in order to enable it in a proper way, in a compliant way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll dive into a bit more detail on kind of how you should think about invoicing compared to. I mean, this presentation isn't about EDI, so I don't want to go into too much on that side of things. But just so that you're aware that that these things are very interlinked, and if you're looking into e-invoicing, then EDI is a very complementary service. But I'll dive into a little bit more just on the e-invoicing side, and I think that will clarify that link a bit further as well. But first, I just wanted to establish a little bit the storyline, if you like. You know, what is e-invoicing? Why is it becoming such a hot topic? And where do we see things going? And I really like showing this map here. We can see how the CTC mandates have evolved from 2015 to 2020. And I should say that you can have an e-invoicing mandate that is not a CTC mandate as well. Later on, when we talk about Belgium, then that is an e-invoicing mandate, but they're not enforcing CTC. But this is a map where you can see all of the countries right now, or as of 2020, of course, that either have a CTC mandate or that have or are in the process of implementing one.
Yeah, but then maybe just to jump in on that, right? Just to be really clear, please correct me if I'm wrong, but either it's CTC or it's just e-invoicing still is a mandate in place to enforce doing proper e-invoicing, right? So therefore, we see the need in action. So regardless in which channel or how I process the e-invoice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a mandate means that there are certain requirements that you must meet inside that country regarding e-invoicing. But it really comes from a place that a lot of countries, they're seeing a lot of problems when it comes to VAT fraud. So basically, companies have figured out, different ways that they can avoid paying some or most of their VAT. And of course, from a government perspective, this is less income from them to be able to do all the things that they set out to do. And so they realized that this invoice document, it became a way that they could actually track a lot better what businesses were doing from a financial point of view inside of the country. Because previously you would have had this much more retroactive way of looking at invoicing, where companies on a periodic basis, so quarterly, yearly, etc., would be sending data to the governments around this topic. But the government then would just have to sort of trust that the company was recording things in a correct way, and then we're not sort of manipulating that data. And so that's why we saw that primarily in South America, we started having the first versions of CTC. And that is, of course, when a company then has to send each invoice when they issue it to the government in real time. So the government get much better transparency into the status of the invoices. And in that way, instead of having to just look retroactively, they're actually able to, in real time, be able to see what the state and the correct VAT should be. And just to give you an indicator of kind of the scale of this, in the EU, so in the EU alone in 2022, they estimate that they've lost around 89.3 billion euros in uncollected VAT. So that's obviously a lot of income, and that's what's kind of driving a lot of the governments to go in this direction. But you're absolutely right, Jamal. I think that what we see a lot is not necessarily that a country would go from having no mandate whatsoever all the way over to having a CTC mandate. Quite often they might start, like Belgium is starting, by introducing the use of, a more regulated type of format or channel that invoices should be communicated in. So basically starting that standardization process before they kind of add the tax authority element, which is where things get a little bit more complicated. But having said all this, I mean, this is a transition from 2015 to 2020. But if we take a step ahead, then you can see that this is the prediction for 2030. So we're looking at pretty much global coverage here in terms of CTC models. And it's estimated that around 90% of organizations will adopt e-invoicing in the near future. So that's a little bit of the background, a bit of context. But let's jump into the more kind of country specifics here. I will start off with Belgium because Belgium is what we call a post-audit country. So they haven't involved the tax authority yet in the process. And I say yet because they are looking to implement this down the line. But starting with what they are looking to implement is as of the 1st of January next year, so 2026, they want to introduce a structured e-invoicing for all domestic B2B transactions. So that's important to say that any of these mandates, they will only apply to the tax registered entities inside that country. So just to say that. And in Belgium, the requirement itself is that the government is recommending the use of PEPL. And the PEPL is both a network, so a channel for how you can send invoices, as well as a format, so the structure that the invoice should be sent in. And that is basically what the mandate is focusing on, that all companies inside of Belgium should be using the PEPL channel, as well as the PEPL BIS 3.0 format. I just want to add that two trading partners can make a decision to use a different format and channel if they have kind of a bilateral agreement to do so. But everyone inside of the Belgian mandates, they must be able to send and receive using PEPL. So that's definitely going to be the primary method here.
In terms of B2G, sorry, just to jump in when I see on a B2B, so it's more like, I would say, Big Bang, because when I look in other countries, and especially out in Germany, you have a phased approach in terms of volume. So if I understand it right, it applies to every business in a category. It doesn't matter which volume of revenue is considered, right? It's a unique thing, what I see here.
Yes, you're absolutely right in that, Jamal, that there's no customer segments here. There's no kind of excluded groups or kind of a phased approach over time. It's going to be 1st of January, and that's going to be the case for everyone. But I would almost call it that there's two big bangs, or maybe two small bangs is one way of putting it. Yeah. Because in 2028 is where we're seeing the implementation of a CTC model. And I say that with the caveat that no legislation has been passed. So they're very much in the feasibility study phase. And of course, 2028 is still some time out. But that is where they're looking to implement actually and add that tax authority element to the model that you can see here. But in spite of time, I mean, I could talk about this all day, but I will move on to Poland. And Poland is a little bit different to Belgium because here we actually have a CTC mandate. So this is where we're adding then the tax authority element into the picture. Here they have a little bit more of a phased approach compared to Belgium, where it just applies to everyone right away, because the rollout plan is that as of February 1st next year, that's when we'll see all the big players, so above 200 million zloty in turnover, must use the KSEF is the name of the platform that the government has. And then everyone else, they follow as of April the 1st. But I should say that they have been quite generous in Poland in terms of having a grace period, because the penalties, if you don't comply with the mandate, doesn't kick in until January the 1st, 2027. So you more or less have 1 year where you're at least not going to be punished that hard if you're not meeting the requirements. But having said that, it is quite a long implementation process for something like this, because the C2C aspect, it adds some additional needs on you as a user in terms of data and processes on your end. And you should be aware as well that these penalties can become quite substantial, because there can be fines of up to 100% of the VAT amount of the invoice, or 18,000 zloty per document. So this is not just from a kind of a risk reduction perspective. It's going to be really expensive if you don't get on top of this in due time.
And good, because I'm just having a look on the process slide, right, on the right hand. I'm just wondering what happens. Let's say I issue the invoice, I get a feedback from the authorities, that's fine, and inform the buyer to pull it. But what happens is the invoice incorrect, right? I made a mistake, or they get a refund for whatever reason. How is the interaction then? So do we need somehow to inform the authority again, or we just do the same process flow again? So it always applies the same way. It doesn't matter. It's a new corrected e-invoice or reissued e-invoice.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I mean, a lot of countries, they will have an invoice, and then they will have these kind of corrective documents. You can have credit notes and debit notes. But with Poland, they actually want you to kind of resubmit. So if there is any problems or errors, then the invoice that is inside the KSEF portal is the legally compliant one. So that's also something that is important for you all to be aware of. That you can, of course, apply your the unique ID and the QR code that you get back into an invoice, and then send that over to your trading partner. But actually, if there's any difference between that invoice and then what's inside the government platform, then the government platform is the legally compliant one. So that's just very important that you guys are aware of that. And I would also say that what we're seeing in Poland is this third step here. This is not something that is regulated in the mandate. The government, they don't say that you have to send, some notification to your trading partner. But what we're seeing in practice is that all of our clients, they're actually putting that into their agreement with the trading partner, to make sure that everyone is aware of when there is an invoice that can be retrieved from the platform.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And I think just in mind of time, I think I will try to move on to France here as well.
Just a comment on the side, even though we're passing through really, really fast, again, we can spend just on Belgium 50 minutes webinar. So if you have any questions that we cannot answer that, we are happy after the webinar to get in touch with you to answer your questions, or to have a deep dive session immediately if it's needed, just to be aware, to just give a high level overview on the different mandates and requirements, just so the audience know.
Yeah, it's a good point, Jamal. And I think also with these things, we're always a little bit, it's a discussion kind of how much of this complexity that we want to go into as well. And what I mean by that is that from a user perspective, from a client perspective, I mean, you will not deal with all of these complexity and the connections between the different actors and the flows flowing backwards and forwards. So from your perspective, you will of course just send out an invoice from your ERP. We'll pick that up, and then you'll get your validation or return back here. So It's just to show a bit what the mandate is saying, but from a user's perspective, it is fairly simple. So very, very high level with France. France is also a CTC model, but it's a little bit more heavyweight compared to Poland, I would say, because it just has a bit more functionality baked into the mandate. So it's not only just sending an invoice, receiving an invoice. It's there's a bit more to it than that. But I'll start with the timeline just so that everyone's aligned on that, because here they have a phased rollout based upon the size of the company. So that's if you're above 50 million euros in revenue. I think there's also some conditions related to the number of employees and so forth. But basically, if you're in that category, then it will be September the 1st, 2026. And if you're below that threshold, then it is September the 1st, 2027. And it's important to say that this applies domestically to any company operating within France. But there are also requirements in France to report if you have cross-border invoicing as well. And so this is not that you have to send things directly to the tax authority, or at least not every invoice, but you have to have some reporting requirements connected to your cross-border invoices and also to your B2C interactions as well.
So just to jump on this, I know we have to look on a time, but I think it's really important. What would this mean in practice? Let's say I have a company based in Germany who does business in France. Can you give an example of flow, how it works?
Yeah, I know it causes some confusion, this kind of cross-border aspect, because it raises questions on, do you have to tell all of your trading partners in other countries how to do things in a certain or particular way? But that's not really the case, because what the French tax authority is asking for is that the company that is based in France, so using your example, Jamal, of having a German company that sends an invoice to a French company, then from the German company's perspective, they just send an invoice to the French company, and there is no difference from the German company's perspective. But from the French company's perspective, what they have to do is they have to make an aggregated report of all of the invoices that the German company sends to the French company, and then they have to send that report to the tax authority. So you basically just need to create that aggregated view of all of your cross-border invoices and then send that to the tax authority.
So the e-reporting thing, not just this processing of sending, but the reporting thing would be an additional layer of work what the French or the VAT company in France has to take care of. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one last thing on the French mandate as well, is that's a little bit different to some other countries because it actually mandates the use of what's called PDPs. And so in Poland, you could pick any service provider. Same thing in Belgium, but here you actually have to pick a registered PDP. So this is a company that has gotten the accreditation to be allowed to perform this function in the process, and that's of course something that TrueCommerce has. But just so that you're aware that you need to make sure that your provider actually has this accreditation. Otherwise, they're not allowed to perform this function in the market. Good. That's very, very quickly on France. I think Jamal, you had some closing remarks here.
Yeah, some closing words, but still try to find have a short Q&A. So what's really important, what you need to take away here is you have to plan ahead. So even though we have January 2026 for one mandate, that doesn't mean you should start in December. So you should take enough time for the implementation. So we have here 3 to 9 months, what we recommend, depending on the complexity, of course. And of course, it will also require some changes in your processes. You can see all the different countries, so you have to adjust it, even though the majority of the complexity, TrueCommerce will take over, but still you need to ensure that it works smoothly. And again, not to make so much advertising for ourselves, but we know what we do. We are expert in the space. We're doing that since 30 years and more. So it doesn't matter which format, doesn't matter which country. So basically, we can help you there and give you some advice. And most importantly, it has to be smooth, secure, and compliant. This is a key thing here. So you have to do it not just for fun or in terms of to avoid the penalty. You have to be compliant. That's really important because otherwise, e-invoices get rejected. You have then less cash flow, and that it's really not really worth coming into this scenario. And before I wrap up the session, this will be recorded and of course shared afterwards. I want to check with Katrin, do we have any questions from the audience so we can answer really quickly?
Yeah, I can see the first question asking, I want to send an e-invoice in Belgium. How much time do I need to prepare in advance?
Yeah. Yeah, we get this question quite a lot, and it depends a little bit on your setup, because Belgium is one of the easier countries because that's a kind of a PEPL connection, and we are of course a accredited PEPL access point. So as TrueCommerce, this is we see this more or less as EDI, and that's very simple for us to do. But having said that, it depends a bit on what your structure is on your end. So if you have an ERP system, I imagine you do have an ERP system, but which system that you're using, where do you have your data? How is it stored? How are you planning to send that to us, and in what format and such? Of course, we can handle any format and any connection that you prefer. But this is kind of the types of factors that will affect the timeline. So I'd say minimum 3 months that you should be preparing for this. And it could go upwards to 6 months, 9 months if you have a complicated structure, or if your data is kind of spread out or coming from a lot of different places.
Okay, then I have an in-house EDI solution. Can I still do e-invoicing with you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think from a TrueCommerce perspective, it's of course easiest if we do the EDI and the e-invoicing. That's where we kind of get control and visibility of the end-to-end flow, and that means that you can have sort of just one, API connection straight to TrueCommerce, and then we can sort of handle both sides of that coin. But having said that, we're flexible in that regard. So if you have an EDI provider that you are very happy with, or you don't have a need for EDI services, then we can provide just that kind of pure e-invoicing function. And it would work the same way, if you like, as if you had us as your EDI provider as well. So that's no problem at all if it's just the e-invoicing that you're looking for, whether that is in one country or multiple countries, then we can help you with that.
And I can see a last question. Why choose you as a service provider instead of, for example, and they say Pagero?
Yeah, that's it's a good question, because I think there's quite a lot of providers in this space, and they each kind of specialize a little bit differently and come from a slightly different place. But what TrueCommerce has is that sort of I think the EDI e-invoicing bundle is something that really gives us a leg up if you're looking for both of those two services together. Because that also means that we have a great country coverage of around 40 CTC countries, and then basically any post-audit country that you're interested in. That's something that we can handle because we have that EDI network and the connections established to do so. So that's a real important value proposition. Beyond that, we also have what we call the adapters. So that is that we have built these API connections to most of the major ERP systems, and that just allows you and in the other direction, us, if you like, to exchange data in a very, very simple, fast, efficient manner. And I know that's something that not a lot of other players in the market has. So definitely, if you have one of those ERPs that we can just connect via API, then that makes things a lot easier. And I think the third part is that we are working as a kind of a managed service. So we have a cloud-based platform. And even though I showed you some slides now that have a lot of kind of scary looking arrows and flows and datas and documents included and excluded, we actually handle all of that complexity for you. So from your perspective, you send an invoice, you receive an invoice. And then underneath the hood, of course, there's a lot of things that are happening, but TrueCommerce takes care of that for you.
So I can't see any other question.
Yeah. So nice final words, good stuff. So again, my offer is, if you have any more questions later on, feel free to reach out. We send the recording, and we're happy to arrange a separate meeting to deep dive in your questions. And by the way, this is a kickoff session, so we will definitely make more e-invoicing news sessions in the future. So we will keep you posted. And yeah, I'm really, really happy to see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening in. Bye-bye.